Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Empowering Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Glenn Harper.
Julie Smith.
What's going on, Julie?
We're back on the coffee kick, I think.
I
It's cold outside.
I was going to say it's summertime. You're drinking the hot stuff. When are you going to
Because
switch
it's
over?
not really summer out there.
It's June. It's summer. It's
I
coming.
mean, by the months, but not by the
Yes,
temperatures.
it's
So,
true. All right. Well, we have a great guest today. Let me do my best on an introduction here. I'd like to introduce you to Naomi Granger, CPA, MBA, the owner of National Association of Cannabis Accounting and Tax Professionals, and owner of Greenleaf CFO. Whether you agree or disagree with the industry she represents, one can agree that she is the bomb when it comes to being the authority in the room with the cannabis space. From starting her career working in two of the big four CPA firms to finding her niche and becoming the leading consultant in her space, who knew that as a state and local tax expert for Big Pharma Pfizer would result in another pharma niche 10 years later? Her passion and desire to help tax professionals navigate this controversial space has been the basis for her success. Why shouldn't professionals advise clients in a space where the rules of accounting and tax apply? Why shouldn't one learn how to thrive in a market that is growing? Why shouldn't a professional be given the opportunity to be a specialist in an industry that provides financial freedom to be the best one can be? Code Section 280E is a joy to read, interpret, and advise. These are some of the reasons why Naomi gets up every day and takes on the naysayers and the critics. Her passion and excitement are contagious. Please help me welcome Naomi to our show.
wow, that might be the best one yet.
Wow. Yeah, you guys are going to have to send that one to me.
All right. We've got a recording of that, so that's good. Well, goodness gracious, we appreciate you being on the show. I know you're busy, and especially this time of the year, everybody's making your particular industry be a hot topic, so I'm sure your time is valuable.
Right.
We appreciate you being here. And, we like to try to get to know our guests a little bit, but man, you're a vault. I can't find anything on you. You have something to hide? This is a great time to come clean on things.
No, nothing to hide.
All right. Well, we're trying to figure out where you're from. Did you grow up in Florida? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Las Vegas and then I went to school in Florida.
That's what's going. So you're a Vegas, I guess a local is what you'd say. So you don't go nowhere near the strip.
I actually live on the strip.
Well, you're breaking all the
Right
stereotypes.
behind the sphere.
Oh, nice. You get to see that every day. Uh,
Yes, it's beautiful.
well, what did your parents do where you grew up in Vegas?
Yeah, so my parents worked at the casinos.
Oh,
Las Vegas is a 24-hour town. So my mother got laid off from her job when I was born in Chicago. She got laid off from her job. She was tired of the cold and had a friend in Vegas and saw how warm it was and knew she can easily get a job anywhere. And we ended up here.
how about that? What did your dad end up doing for a living?
That's where they met. So they met
Oh,
at the casino and he was the delivery driver for a factory that created all of the glass that you see inside of the slot machines. And so they would create the glass, he would deliver it to the casinos and they would build insert them into the machines.
how crazy is that? Did they keep you away from all that growing up, or were you immersed in that?
Yeah, I was too young. You have to be 21 or older for the casinos.
I figured they know people and hook you up to get you in on that.
Well,
Um,
my mother worked at Circus, so I got to
yep.
go and play in the circus with all the arcade games and all the circus games and watch the circus play every so often. So
So did they wherever they were they employed by somebody? They were never self-employed. They always had her like quote real job.
yes,
Gotcha. So how did you decide on Florida?
I was trying to get away. I was trying to
You
go
know,
as far away as possible and make sure that I can survive on my own and that I was independent and that I can do this.
I thought you went there for the humidity, but
Not at all. I
not
was
at
too
all.
young to even really know what was going on. I just knew, oh, Florida sounds exciting. I didn't
Well,
realize there was a difference between Miami, Florida, and Tallahassee, Florida.
way different, way different. Yeah, you can, and even on the just on being on the west side of Florida as well, Tampa area would be way different. So where is Florida Agriculture Mechanical University at? Where city is that in?
In Tallahassee, Florida.
In Tallahassee. Okay.
Yeah,
So
right next to Florida State.
gotcha. So you decided at a young age you wanted to be an accountant, which, gets me every time, the fellow accountants on the show. But why did you want to pick accounting?
I was really good with numbers, but the English language was another struggle.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was
Was
really
it-
good in math in school, and I didn't really have I didn't know about all the vast array of different things. I just knew you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer. Somebody said, "Oh, you're good with numbers, be an accountant." And so that's the direction I went.
You think you got that from counting cards at a young age?
No,
No,
I
not,
wasn't
I was
counting cards.
hoping. I was hoping. I was
She's
hoping.
an accountant. She's
I
very
know.
fiscally responsible,
Well, yeah, that is responsive. You can count cards well. And then you were sitting there doing your accounting degree, but then you decided to get your MBA as well.
which is what I'm really excited about.
That's over there. How did you pick that?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was the program that I went into was an MBA program. So it was a 5 year where we did our undergraduate and when we did our MBA. And in between that, we did internships to kind of because in order to qualify for your MBA, you have to have 2 years of work experience. So we had extended internships where we would work. I worked with that's where I worked with Pfizer, I worked with Deloitte, I worked with a lot of different companies to get that work experience.
Did you enjoy the as an intern and the work experience at those big companies? When I mean, I don't. Did you ever work at a big company before? Is that your first dabble into that?
That was my first. It was like a dream, like walking into Deloitte and, coming from Las Vegas and being in the accounting program in high school. And one of the teachers was an ex big, I think it was six back then. And I was like, whoa, like that was a dream. And then being able to walk into those doors and then, working in New York and like that was on my first time ever seeing snow and ever going to the Northeast. So it was really fun getting those experiences.
You did your internship in New York.
I did.
Wow. So Vegas, Florida, middle of nowhere, and then all the way up to New York
So
City.
you didn't like the cold weather, though. I guess we could confirm that.
Not at all. Luckily, I lived right in Manhattan and I was like a 4 block walk from Pfizer. So I didn't really have to deal with it. But yeah, I was ready because my idea going from Las Vegas to Florida was, oh, if you have a pea coat, that means it's really cold outside. And so a pea coat it was what I needed. And then I go to New York and the wind and the cold went straight through the pea coat.
Yeah, that's a whole different environment. Now, when you were doing this and you're working for a living and you're doing your internships, then you come out and you work some more at different other places. Um, when did you decide, I looked a little bit in your bios and stuff, you decided that, hey, you were doing some of that space while you're working for these firms, right? And then you're like, wait a minute, I can do this better on my own. Is that how you came to that realization or?
I did those internships, then I graduated and I had a long career in public accounting. And I worked with, during doing the external audit for some of the public accounting firms. I also did corporate accounting for SEC filings. And then after 12 years, I realized, you know what? I'm tired of being in an office. I'm tired of being in a cubicle. And I'm also tired of asking for permission. If I need a doctor's appointment, I have to get approval to take a day off. I was just tired of all of that. And so I ended up going a whole nother direction. I thought that, hey, I just need to build an online business. I need to learn how to make websites, or I need to learn how to, do some online marketing. I had no idea how to become a remote accountant. And then I started taking some training on building a remote accounting firm, marketing yourself. And then that's when I stumbled on the cannabis industry.
So you didn't have an interest in the cannabis industry prior to that. I thought you were maybe doing some of that before. No, you just
So wait,
went,
how
No.
did you stumble
wow.
upon it? I'm curious because did it just like jump out at you one day and you're like, oh, that was a good one.
I was just working with my mentor, and one of the things that he stressed was you have to pick a niche. And so I picked a couple of niches. I explored landing clients in those niches. I wasn't really excited about the people that I spoke to. I was like, oh, this just sounds so boring. And then he mentioned the cannabis niche and that it was emerging, it was up and coming. There's a need for trained accountants. And then when I started dabbling in it and really doing my research, that's when I never looked back. It just opened up for me.
So I'm going to backtrack. You mentioned a mentor, and that's always, something that we ask our entrepreneurs. So This mentor, how did you know them? How did they become a mentor? How did that all come about?
Yeah, so it was actually just an online training program. I was looking for learning how to become a remote bookkeeper and how to market myself as a bookkeeper and an accountant. And I found his training and I joined his program, and that's how he became one of my mentors.
Do you still talk to him today?
No,
No, I didn't know.
uh, he got out of the business.
It's funny. Accountants are pretty stereotypical, as you know, right? And they like to kind of do the same thing that they do, and what did we do last year, and do the same thing. For you
Yes.
to be doing SEC filings, Fortune 500 companies, New York City, and go, I'm going to be an online bookkeeper. I mean, that is a major transformation for a CPA.
At this point, where are you living?
So I was living in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Um, and what I wanted that, I read Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week, and I wanted the laptop lifestyle. Like I wanted to be able to be on the beach, have my martinis and take meetings and, things like that. And so that was always in the back of my head. And I was trying to figure out how to get there. And I didn't know what it was going to take, but if it meant I no longer could be an accountant and I had to learn how to build websites, that was the direction that I was going.
Well, and again, it's usually, again, it's just interesting to hear because all our listeners out there, when you make that jump, you might leave a really cushy, cool job that people would kill to have. You're going to step back and do something might not be as glamorous because you want the freedom, not necessarily the money. And then you immediately pivot and you're back on top doing something in similar, but way different, which way more specialized. How long did it take you from saying, I'm going to be an online bookkeeper thing to being a specialist in the industry?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And a lot of times, and you mentioned you leave that cushy, people think it's safe, guaranteed role. Well, I was actually laid off. And a lot of people are in a position where they get laid off. So my hand was forced. I probably would have never left because of the fear of, oh, this is safe and secure, but it's not as secure as we may think. And there's more out there. Like I was tired of people telling me what I was worth and what role I was going to play and all that stuff. And so I was unemployed for 2 years trying to figure it out because I was an employee. I was trained to be an employee my entire life. I had no idea how to be an entrepreneur. And so even though I had a master's degree, even though I was a CPA, I went back and I sought out mentors, and I had more than one. I had several mentors that I worked with to teach me how to be an entrepreneur.
How about that? So sometimes, people are scared to make the jump. Sometimes they dabble in it, and sometimes you really don't have a choice, right? And you knew what you didn't want, but you didn't necessarily know what you wanted, but you waited to make it happen.
But I mean, couldn't you have went and sought a different job in the same realm? Because at that point, when you're laid off, you still have that fear, right? I'm just guessing. You still have the fear of like, okay, what's next? So
Right.
there had to be a bigger fear of going and getting that same job as an employee than going to figure it out on your own because your skill set was something that was sought after, right? And so what do you think the fear of going back to that cushy job that had some
Rules.
everyday,
Yeah.
routine to it that made you jump and say, you know what, I'd rather be over here and take a huge pivot?
So I had already made up my mind that in my last role, that this is going to be my last corporate role. I don't know how it's going to end, but I was saving my money, so I had enough money saved. I'm an accountant. I could have lived for 5 years off of the amount of money because
Fine.
I don't have any kids. I don't have any like I'll sleep on somebody's couch, whatever it takes. But I was there, so I had my
Meanwhile,
money
Glenn's got
saved.
you at the casino counting the cards to make next time's winner.
I was excited for a moment. I said, hey, maybe we got a savant here. I don't know.
I knew it.
Yeah, I would have done that probably. No, I
Yeah.
wanted time freedom. So I had my money saved. I said, this is my last corporate job, and it's not, I'm actually going to give it a try because I knew it wasn't going to be like immediate, that I was just going to understand how to be an entrepreneur, how to market myself, how to land clients, all that stuff. I knew it wasn't going to be immediate, but I told myself, I'm a CPA. I can always get a job. So I am going to burn through every single dollar and say that I actually gave it a try before I go back and try to get a job.
See right there. That's why everybody should go get an accounting degree because no matter what, you will always be able to get a job. Might not be the
Hey.
great job, but you can always get a job, which is one of the things. I mean, that's what I heard growing up is no matter what, you will always be employable if you're an accountant because everybody needs accountants. So you already had
Yeah,
that.
and I actually did, like, towards the end of those 2 years, I was actually I wasn't at the end of my money, but I was kind of at the end of my rope with thinking, oh, this is just not for me. I don't know, it's not good enough. And I went into a job interview, and then they offered me $50,000. And I was like, did you not see I have 12 years of experience on my resume? And so then that's when I realized, that's when I really doubled down in everything. Like within 2 weeks of that, I landed my first client. And they were paying me like $1,500 a month. And I was like, oh, okay, I just have to get a couple more of these and I'll be past that 50,000. And everything started to turn around for me after that.
So that was the turning point of like, okay, you're committed to this, no turning back. How long did it take you before did it take 6 months where you were comfortable and then could start scaling and, growing more where you were comfortable with that monthly income or how did that go?
Always comfortable because I had my savings and my home was secure. Like my living expenses were so minimum. It was less than the $1,500 a month. I just had like a car note. So I was always comfortable. So I had the runway to be able to take more risk, and invest that money to try to see if I can grow something.
What did your parents say when you're like, Mom, Dad, yeah, got laid off. I'm not going back to big companies. I'm gonna try to figure things out for the next 2 years. And then you know what? I think I'm gonna just kind of hang out. And oh, by the way, I'm gonna get in a very controversial space. Did they say, what is wrong with you? Or did they say, go get them, girl?
Yeah, I didn't really break it down to them because I don't think they would have really understood what was going on. So they knew that I had lost my job, but they knew that I was okay because they knew that I was good with money. So they weren't concerned. And then when I started doing cannabis and then they started seeing, I was actually really doing well, they were just happy.
How about that? So did you when the Raiders came to Vegas, were you a big fan? Were you excited about that? Or was it like
Um,
anticlimactic for you?
Yeah, I'm not really into sports. Vegas historically was not a
Mhm.
sports town. So I never really had a team. It was nice. I was actually, during the stadium was being built during COVID, and I was going jogging around that area, watching the whole thing being built. So it was nice to see.
Yeah, it's a cool stadium, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
I want to do a whole podcast on a local's view of the Vegas Strip because it's got to be
It's
so
intriguing.
different. But that's a different podcast for a different whole
Okay.
thing.
Did you play sports growing up, or you were more a bookie, just more like looking at books and reading books and doing that thing, or were you out hustling?
No, I was busy just playing um tag, and I wasn't playing sports. Um I I wasn't really into reading books. But and I also wasn't into watching TV. I'm wondering, what did I actually do? I did my schoolwork though. I was I had a high GPA. So I made sure all my schoolwork was done.
Well, I think that sounded bad. I said a bookie, meaning like reading a lot of books, not like a bookie is in like gambling. So I didn't mean to throw that out there. I don't know if you're doing that on the down low, but oopsie daisy, little play on words, didn't mean that. So yeah, and the reason we asked that question because sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs they're either outcast and they're used to being alone and they just got to go grind it out, or they're part of a team or a sport and they're just used to that get up and grind. And I was just trying to
Mm,
figure where you fit in that perspective, because again, to be an entrepreneur is not easy. You have to have
yeah.
some just have to be tough to do that. Where do you think that came from? Like you're like, I can
Yeah, so I'm an only child, and I've always had that independent mindset. Like that's the reason why I moved all the way to Florida by myself as a teenager. So it's more, I think I'm more of that. I can get in my own little zone and by myself with no distractions and just grind it out.
Were you able to take, as you've been on this journey when you became, doing your current gig, have you taken a lot of things that you learned at the big four, big six, big eight, whatever the accounting firms were at the time, and at the other big companies you worked at, did you take a lot of those principles and concepts, or did you like, look, that stuff is not for me. I got to do it this way.
Yeah, no, the main principle, I mean, all it's all evolved since. But just understanding being an external auditor, I feel like you get a very unique skill set. And I was there around SOX. And so I learned how to go into any organization, read the trial balance, break it down, talk to all the different people, and really understand that organization better than the people who probably work there. And I think that that's necessary as an accountant to be able to just take a trial balance and see what's wrong. Like our job was to find what was wrong as auditors. And so that's kind of one of the main skill sets. Like you can show me something and you can show me Excel spreadsheet and I can point out an incorrect formula like pretty quickly. So I think it's just that eye for detail that I took, and just understanding the audit principles, although they've kind of evolved and changed since I've left Big Four. But just understanding how all that works. My job so when I worked at Pfizer, I worked in their state and local tax department. And I was thinking, when I graduate, this is where I'm going to come because, I've already worked here before. I know the people, but the director or the manager of the department that I worked at, he said, we would love to have you back. You're an excellent, employee. However, if you really want to learn accounting, this is not the training grounds. Big Four is the training grounds for accountants. And so he did me a huge favor because I would have been siloed into just understanding pharmaceutical, state and local tax rather than really understanding the big picture of accounting and growing how to read financial statements and things like that.
I think that was probably the best choice you made. I mean, as
Yeah.
glorious and exciting as state and local tax would be, I can't imagine it'd be have any relevance in helping you in a different career. And that's the cool thing about having that accounting mindset. And then you have the MBA on top of it, which is a whole different, layer that really helps you a lot, probably is just the accounting. You can look at things a little more globally from above and know how they flow, where other industries you only get to see a piece where you got to see like the bird's eye view, and then understand the MBA, the management portion of it. I mean, that's a huge plus. I mean, this one over here, she's big in the MBA side.
I know, but she's talking about how she loves numbers, so she loves.
No.
I'm just
I
kidding.
think the numbers are probably. I think it's probably a good piece for both of that to work. So that's a cool thing you did. Do you feel like in your current when you made the decision, and I put that in my intro, that had to be a big step to jump into an industry that might not be, and that was a few years ago when you did this. Maybe it's not as mainstream or whatever. Were you worried about that at all? You said, "Ah, to hell with it, I'm going to go for it."
Yes, I've always been the type to go against the grain. And I had relocated to Las Vegas and we just passed we just started opening dispensaries here. So I was seeing it everywhere. And then I saw in the news that California was starting their adult use program in January of 2018, because I started in 2017. So January of 2018 is when California came on board, and it was supposed to, have tens of thousands of licenses issued. And I just knew there was going to be so many clients there. And even when I did work in Big Four, I was the one that raised my hand to volunteer. Like they also siloed you into an industry. So I was in the tech industry, but I wanted to help out with the manufacturing industry and the consumable goods industry and all these different industries because I started to get bored. And so once I started learning about cannabis, I realized that every single day I'm learning something new. And I enjoy it. 7 years later, I'm still here. This is like one of the longest rides I've been on.
So did you have a mentor in the cannabis industry that kind of helped you into the entry of that? Or how did you, obviously your mentor said pick a niche, you did that, but there's got to be more to it than that, right? There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, so I did. I partnered with another cannabis entrepreneur and we started working together. We started working on clients together. And then I started doing my own clients and then really learning it by just doing it and just staying abreast and staying in the mix with other accountants in the industry.
Isn't it the craziest thing that the IRS wants you to report all income for wherever derived, illegal or legal? You still have to account for it. You don't go to jail if you account for your gambling thing or your, whatever, drugs or whatever. It's just bizarre. And then they come and they write a specific code section just for the cannabis industry, even though federally it's such a bizarre niche that people are worried. And one of the concerns probably, and as a CPA having a practice is like, they got to kind of pay everything in cash, right? They don't really have bank accounts. They just started with some credit unions, right? They could move some money around, but how does an accountant receive payment in cash for consulting with the cannabis industry? That creates a bit of a like, oh, that's uncomfortable, right? So how do you assuage those fears for those other CPAs out there?
Yeah, so back in the olden days, like 2015, 2016, we were accepting cash, but ever since I've joined, every single one of my clients has been banked. So for most markets, there are local credit unions that are able to bank, that do bank cannabis operators, or the cannabis operator can have a personal bank account that they're using for business purposes. There's a lot of gray areas when you're in this industry, but I haven't had to accept cash payment. But yeah, there are some people out there that may be still accepting cash payments, but for the most part, they're all banked.
So it can be, quote, it's the accountant's going to feel comfortable receiving payment, and is I guess what I'm getting at, because that was a very uncomfortable conversation. Like, how to report all this cash I'm collecting, right? So that would be
Yeah,
interesting.
the Form 8300s and all
Yes,
that stuff.
nobody
Yeah.
likes that. Um, when you're doing this now and you've taken the rules of the 280E, have you been able to expound and throw more things up in that cost of goods category, or have you been challenged on that? Are you pushing that envelope, or is it pretty well established and it's either above or below that line and that's the way it is? You can't stretch anything in there? Or is that where
These
you're
are
Yeah.
proprietary
well,
secrets.
well, I think that's what she's consulting accountants on, is what I'm guessing. And you don't have to
Yeah.
know the details, but is that something that's part of your program to get people to be able to get a better deduction than they otherwise would have received?
Yeah, so you have to understand. So 280E is the federal tax code, and then you have code section 471. You have dash 11, you have dash 3, you have a couple of 471, and you also have 471C. And so it depends if you are a manufacturer or cultivator. If you're growing the plant, you can take a lot more of cost of goods sold. The cost of to grow the plant is all considered cost of goods sold. The cost to manufacture a plant and turn it into a tincture or an oil or something edible is all cost of goods sold. But then when you get to the reseller level, the dispensary, the delivery operator, the cost of the code says the cost is only whatever it costs to purchase the actual inventory and whatever freight to get that inventory to you. And so there is another code section called 471C, which was implemented during the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act by Donald Trump back in 2017. And it indicates that you can determine your own method of accounting and allocate more inventoriable cost. And so we have played a lot with using 471C for our resellers to help them get more cost deducted. So, storage space for the inventory, bud tender cost, all those different direct costs in order to actually sell the plant, inventory counts, things like that. And so we've had that challenged in court. We don't have any court law yet. A lot of it was settled outside of court, but we have had some success with using that.
Does seem pretty discriminatory that everybody else gets to write things off, but in that industry you can't. That just doesn't seem sporting, does it? As a true accountant and a tax person, that just seems very not very discriminatory against a certain industry. But it is what it is. And I think the key to this thing is that I think when you first started out, you were maybe working for those companies doing those things, but eventually you step back and you're teaching other accountants how to do this. And that's your business model now. Is that true?
Yes.
So don't you miss getting down in the
So
trenches?
do you still help, or do you still have any of those clients that you've kind of been able to delegate, I don't want to say that monthly work or whatever that is, out? Do you still hold on to any of that?
Yeah, so I still have my own clients that I work with that kind of keep me familiar with what's going on. And then I train other accountants who are trying to grow in this industry.
So
So
you need 32 hours in a day as well.
Yeah. Have you guys figured that one out?
yes.
No.
Well, it's a funny thing when you see these entrepreneurs and it's not like us or anybody else when you finally realize the thing that you're doing in that industry, you're like, well, I could keep doing that ad nauseum, but where's the fun in that? How about I go teach more people how to do it and share those secrets and get paid to do that? When did you make that decision that it's like, I'm not going to just deal with the industry and do the work. I want to teach others how to be a consultant. When did that happen?
Yeah, so during those 2 years that I was unemployed and I saw all these online trainings and all these online classes, I realized that there's a lot of, opportunity to train in different specialties. So I always knew that eventually I wanted to train and build like courses and online courses. And I kind of have a vision that we're going to transition away from university to specific, specialized training down the road.
So
Which
do you think your passion, this is a loaded question, is your passion truly accounting and numbers, or is your passion truly training? What really gets you up in the morning or lights your fire?
So I really enjoy the training and the learning. So I really enjoy learning for myself and then breaking that down and teaching that to someone else. So I'm more of for my firm, I'm more of the front-facing person, the client acquisition type person, and helping to make decisions, but not deep in the trenches and doing all the reconciliations and the, chasing down invoices and things like that.
don't you miss that a little bit? That checkbook. I mean, I'm just saying you got to get your fix every now and again. You probably do your own books, I'm guessing. I'm kidding. So when this thing goes, I mean, is it from just at some point we asked for the plug, but maybe we can do that now.
Well, wait, I have lots. We have
Well, I know,
more
but I'm just saying
questions.
this would be a good time to say, well, how does an accounting firm reach out to you and what can they expect to do that? Instead of waiting to the end, we can do that now because we're on track. How does one go about and saying, look, Naomi, I'm looking like
Look
I'm
at
getting
us.
this
Look at
face.
this accountant pivoting and changing. I just
It's
want
fair.
everyone to acknowledge that in the industry.
It's I'm gonna have to go see my therapist after this, but no, like how does one go to get a hold of you and what does that program look like? Is it like a 2-day class, a month coaching? How does that look?
Yeah, so the name of the program is called Calculating Cannabis. And people can reach out to me directly, Naomi at nacatpros.org. So it's the National Association of Cannabis Accounting and Tax Professionals. But I've kind of using the acronym NACATPROS.org. That's our website. And you can contact me there. But the way the program works is, once you join, it's an 8-week program and it teaches you from start to finish how to set yourself up, understanding what types of services do these business owners need, how to find these operators, how to market yourself to these operators, how to onboard these clients, how to set up your back end and your systems, and then all the nuances, understanding cash, understanding inventory, understanding seed to sale track and trace systems, like all the SOPs and things that you need in order to get up and running with that first client in the industry.
What's funny is probably 90% of what you just said is probably what everybody needs to do. And the 10% is the specific to the industry. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that was kind of the goal. I wanted the program to, if you decide to pivot, I still want it to be able to have useful information that you can use in your business.
That's awesome. So I have a question. Besides finding 32 hours in a day, which we're all failing at currently, what is the biggest lesson that you could provide to our listeners when you decided to kind of take a step back from your day-to-day firm and pivot and do really what your passion is? What was your biggest lesson in being able to be in both of those?
So I guess you have to define exactly what you want your life to look like. How does it look when you wake up? What types of, who are you talking to? How much time are you spending? So you have to you have to get crystal clear on exactly what you want, and then work backwards to figure out what type of role would fit that. And so I knew if I'm sitting on the phone all day with the bankers trying to get my deposit correct for my clients, that's not going to give me that time freedom that I would like, to be able to get in front of operators and learn more about their business and teaching other accountants about this industry. So I think the biggest thing was understanding exactly what I wanted and what I wanted my life to look like and how I wanted to spend my time.
And are you really good at delegating, I'm guessing?
I am getting there. I think I'm still
Ah,
learning. I think part of it is you have to learn how to be a leader. It's difficult to find, really good employees that work with you and are, understand the vision and can carry projects through. So I'm still learning that. I work with consultants and I work with some employees, but yeah, I think that's going to be an ongoing struggle.
yeah, that's the accounting genie, and yeah, that's going to be a challenge. But you're working through it, which is important. And so,
Yeah.
to what Julia is saying, so at some point you had to make the decision to say, wait a minute, this is not how it's going to go. This is what I got to redefine it. Was that process? Did you get a consultant to help you with that? Did you just sit in a dark room and just meditate? Did you go to the beach, top of the mountain, you write it all out? How did you define who you wanted to be? What made that happen?
That was just self development. um, Going all the different mentors I mentioned. So I had spiritual mentors, I had business mentors, I had mentors in all different areas to kind of figure that out. And I did go on my own journeys. I did some self-reflecting, journaling, meditating. And that's also an ongoing process as well.
You know, it's weird, but most entrepreneurs like shy away from that kind of stuff. They're like,
The
I know it all,
woo-woo.
I'm good, right? And now we're hearing that not only did you embrace it, but you went all aspects to try to figure out the meaning of life, if you will, and figure it out. And now here you are, slaying it, having a good time, relaxing, helping a lot of people out. Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, because I mean, it's true that if you, a lot of people just come to me and they're like, I just want to understand the accountant. I want to understand the accounting. And then they have a hard time landing a client. And I realize you don't really believe in yourself. Like you have to do that self-reflecting and you have to do the self-personal development in order to be successful. Just knowing how to do the debits and credits is not going to get you in front of somebody who's going to say yes to your monthly reoccurring package that you want to offer them. So yeah, I do a lot of that with the accountants in my program as well, helping them say, hey, what exactly are people going to hire you for? Why you? What are you offering? And a lot of times they say, oh, I can reconcile a bank statement. Well, yeah, so can the person down the street. Why you? So you have to really understand the value that you bring and be able to properly communicate your value in order to be able to be successful in any business.
She's definitely drinking the Kool-Aid.
It's
This is good stuff.
It
This is what we
sounds like
preach.
you're
Yeah.
giving the shortcuts. So you're selling an online training class, and I love that, right? Because the SOPs and everything. But what you've really done is taken what you've learned throughout your entire life with all of your mentors on all the mountains, the beaches,
Platforms.
everything you just named, and you're providing that shortcut to everybody in order to find that faster. And I applaud that.
Thank you.
I've got one more question, and Julie's got another one, but
Two.
she's got two. So was there any point in time and I'm sure there was, but I love this question, where you're like, oh man, if when you look back, if I did just chose option A versus option B back then, I would be on a whole different trajectory here. Do you have a bunch of those? I mean, you don't get to regret them, but you're just like, oh man,
Yeah.
if I
Didn't
just
we
would have
talk
could.
about Pfizer versus Deloitte?
Well, that was something different. That was a
Oh.
technical thing. That wasn't like you know.
So give us another one.
I don't like to get myself into that cycle because there's so many decisions that you make in life, and it takes those decisions to get you to be who you are and where you are. And so I just kind of accept it. I made that decision and I'll accept the lessons that I learned from that decision. Hindsight is 2020. Like, I really wish I can go back to my 20s and just redo it, redo the last 20 years, but
But I think that's the takeaway of that is everybody's going to have those, oh man. But at the end of the day, the only way you get experience is you have to go through the valley of darkness to figure it out. And that just is part
Right.
of it. So just don't give up. Keep going.
So I
Yeah.
have two more questions, and then you're off the hook with us. What is Naomi's superpower?
I think I can break down like a really complex topic into bite-sized pieces so that it's crystal clear and people understand it. I get that a lot, that people are like, this seems so, and then I can break it down to them and they're like, oh, okay, I can do this. A lot of people, they feel like they believe in themselves. I get so excited when people land clients and they're like, oh my gosh, I was able to land my first client and I just did what you said. And so, yeah, I feel like that's part of it.
So last question and the toughest question.
Did you study for this? I hope.
What is your end game?
Oh, so of course I'd want to retire and just have time freedom, location freedom, not have to do anything, have something that I've built. Like, I really enjoy the cannabis industry because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to actually build and shape one of the largest industries in the country. And it has far-reaching aspects beyond just the plant and rescheduling the plant, descheduling the plant, but there's a social equity component tied to it. We've had 50 years war on drugs, hundreds of thousands or millions of people have been locked up for this plant, and now we're going back and we're doing prison reform. We're releasing these prisoners and we're giving them business licenses. We're helping them understand the business and giving them a chance to actually run a successful business. And so I do a lot of advocacy work and I do a lot of things. It's called social equity, where I'm doing education and training, not just to accountants, but to new business owners so that they can better understand financial literacy, business acumen, things like that. And so I would love to be able to leave my legacy and my little mark that, Naomi and her organization has helped X number of people run successful businesses, understand finances and accounting and things like that. So that just makes me, I'm really passionate about this industry because
I
it
can
has so
feel
much
your
so far.
passion coming through.
Told you. Told you.
And so
Yeah.
I think as much as you want to drink a Mai Tai on the beach, I think you'll have your laptop and I think you'd be hard pressed to really be able to give it up just because I don't think that passion can go away.
You know too much.
Right, yeah.
I mean, and now, especially once you start helping all these other people, that's going to be so rewarding. You don't do it for the money, you do it because you enjoy it. So you can't stop. You know too much. So you're just one of those people, just like all entrepreneurs. We're never going to stop.
It really was a trick question because no matter how you answered it, the answer was you're probably not going to stop. There is no end. You may pivot 14,000 times, but there's really no end game because I mean, I could feel your passion coming through, and that would be really hard to tether even on the beach with Mai Tais.
Right. And it's the thing is like you need to live, you need income to live and survive and things, and you need money to implement different programs if you're going to be traveling and teaching people and stuff. So I really want to be in a position where I'm comfortable enough to just, okay, today I'm going to go to California and go to this community and just help everybody with what's going on in their business.
Yeah, you could live on 1,500 a month, but we're way beyond that now. So we've got an entourage. It's expensive, so I get it. Well,
Yeah.
you've been a joy to have on our show. We've learned a lot about things. And again, as the entrepreneur journey continues for all our listeners, I hope there's a lot of nuggets you can take from this. And we appreciate you being on the show. I'm Glenn Harper.
Julie Smith.